Hello and welcome to Mirador Television. We are the biggest little TV in the world, based in Lewes, East Sussex in England. Our aim is to entertain and to spice things up a little. We will also keep an eye on the local politics, because let's face it, someone has to. Our programs range from stories about the local people to stories about people from all the way across the pond. Brought to you by our wonderful colleagues in New York. So why not sit back, relax with your favourite cuppa, or maybe your favourite tipple, and enjoy. This is Mirador Television.
Well, good morning, and here we go again. Something has got a headache again this morning because I've just suddenly lost all the computer. I have no idea whether I'm broadcasting at the moment. It says I am, and I hope I am, but I have no backup whatsoever, no videos, no nothing. So it's one of those days. As you can see, this is going to be one of the great days, the great moments of 2021, because I am going to go and have my haircut at 10 o'clock. Oh, it is the growth since Christmas. I haven't been able to do it since then. So I hope that we're streaming to you. And otherwise, I'm just beating my gums, as the Jamaicans would say. But it is Friday. It's Friday the 23rd of January, February, March, April. Let's get it right. And we are in Lewes, the county town of East Sussex. And I have just arrived from New Haven, which is an interesting little town. It's beloved of Canadians, and if you go start to drive towards the town, which is quite small, but it has a reasonably large port. But as you drive past the entrance to the town, as it were, there is a Canadian flag, and the reason for that is that the ill-fated Dieppe raid, which was mainly Canadians during the Second World War, started in Dieppe, and the people in Dieppe, the people in New Haven, have not forgotten that many of those Canadian soldiers gave their lives, and others were imprisoned. It was a complete and utter disaster. But it's an ancient town, a historic town. It's got a fort up on the cliffs with which go back to the Iron Age. It's the estuary of the River Ouse, which has in itself quite a terrific history, which we'll tell one day. And all in all, not a bad little port. The trouble is that in trying to accommodate traffic, it's gone into a real mishmash of roads, which tends to cut the town centre off. So it hasn't flourished the way that one would expect a major port town. And hopefully, there'll be initiative after initiative after initiative, and always called by politicians, of course, who, when they're not elected anymore, don't give a damn. And those officers, as they call them, who don't really want to get involved in these sort of things, can sort of persuade the next batch of politicians to start all over again. So I'm afraid that New Haven and the residents say that they are ignored to a great degree, and I couldn't agree more. They are, I think. Anyway, it's an interesting town. And I stayed there overnight because I have friends there, and they invited me to have dinner with them and to stay the night. And then I caught a train. It's the first one, experimenting to get in here in time to do absolutely nothing and have everything go wrong. So there we are. That's my exciting day so far. Yesterday, we tried an experiment. We tried to go outside. And in fact, part of it worked and part of it didn't. And we don't quite know why. We've asked our experts to sort it out because we use phones when we're outside broadcasts. Of course, you would expect that we would. And the one phone was fine. It showed a good picture, but the camera has been damaged, so we have to do something about that. So you get a milky sort of picture. The other one wouldn't perform properly; it was stuttering backwards and forwards. So we got two cameras, two phones. One was doing one thing and one was doing the other, and we couldn't actually bring them together so that just one phone would do both things. So there you are. But if the weather is like this, we will do more and more broadcasting from outside because Lewes is a very historic place. Lots of places that we can sit, do our little broadcast, and give you a bit of history of this town with the history all around us. The castle, the priory, the Grange, the river itself, cliff, you name it. There are lots of places with terrific history, mostly pointing towards freedom of speech and freedom of the vote, democracy, or at least democracy as they knew it in those days, but it spread to the democracy which we hope that we have now, started in Lewes with the Battle of Lewes in 1264. Battle of Lewes, you'll say, you know about the Battle of Hastings, and you know about the Battle of this and the Battle of that. Well, the Battle of Lewes was really the key battle, where King Henry III was taken on by Simon de Montfort because the barons, the nobles, were fed up with the fact that Magna Carta had had absolutely no impact whatsoever, and that they were having their money and their taxes spent by the king, and they weren't having any say in how it was spent. And he was a bit of a party goer, apparently. In fact, when the battle was engaged, he was busy having a feast. I think it's a feast of St. Pancras, actually in the priory itself. And it was taken a bit by surprise when de Montfort crept up with his troops, and they waged battle. But it was some battle, and they think that probably 15,000 men took part. And even now, we find pits with bones in, which are patently from the victims of that battle, when afterwards they were poured in their hundreds. There were thousands that were lost. And the historians here make much of the fact that in those days you had a broadsword, but quite often that broadsword wasn't to cut somebody's head off. And what you did was you thwacked somebody with it. And that meant that their inside organs get damaged, and then they died a horribly painful death. So you could leave the battlefield, and you may not leave too many corpses behind, but eventually there were enough to really demand that they be put into a soldier's grave, I suppose, but unmarked. And we keep on finding them. So lots of history here, and we will go around the town once we've resolved the camera issue. And we'll tell you a little bit about it right from the spot where it actually happened. I'll tell you one thing with the system here. having such a headache all the time is we're going to have to go somewhere because it isn't working at all. The weather. Well, today it's going to be sunny again. It's going to be a nice day, and indeed, having walked out in it already, I agree that it will be. At 9 o'clock, it's going to be 8 degrees, but then it's going to rise to 15 degrees as the sun reaches the heavens, and a really warm day. We're not going to get, we have a moderate breeze, but no cloud. It's going to be a really, really nice day. And looking outside, there is no cloud. And my tree, which is always my weather vane to see how windy it's going to be, is calm at the moment. So if you want to get out there right now, you can get the best of the day, a cloudless sky, some nice sun, a bit chilly, but no breeze. And that breeze is going to pick up as the day goes by. But that's the weather for you today. Low of 4 degrees, high of 15 degrees. And it looks as if it's going to be much the same tomorrow, Saturday, which would be very nice because I think that we're beginning to value the fact that we can now have a day off. And if we actually find a restaurant or a pub that's serving outside, we can have a beer or two and a nice chat. And I don't believe more than anybody else does really that life is going to come back to normal. In fact, every indication, a statistic anyway, shows that it's not. But we are still a very sociable race. We'd like to have a little chat and a little joke and a little bit of a giggle. So you're going to be able to do that over this weekend. Sunday isn't going to be so great, but the temperature will drop to 10 and we'll have some cloud. But tomorrow, a glorious Saturday, and today, a glorious Friday. So get out there and enjoy. The news headlines. Now, COVID is in the headlines again because, well, for several reasons. First of all, India has been put on the UK's red list. And of course, there are a lot of critics who are saying it should have been done a lot earlier because there's every indication that India was going to suffer badly from a second wave. And indeed it is, and it's becoming rampant there. So now you can either go to India or come back from it without going through the most stringent restrictions, which means self-isolating in a hotel for a couple of weeks. And really being very, very cautious. The couple of other COVID stories. One is that they are now finding that the vaccines are very, very resistant to the bug, that they are good, that they are working, and that in fact, if you only had one, you can be as defended against the virus as if you had two. So that part of things is working, and thank goodness it is. I've had two jabs. Some people haven't had any, and I hope that they can get it quickly to defend them, because there are examples still of people catching the COVID virus in the UK, although the figures have plummeted to where we're about only 5% of what we were at the height of the epidemic, the pandemic, as we now call it. So that's the. There's a couple of other things associated with COVID. I mean, first of all, there is some suggestion that you might get it passed on or pass it on to animals, cats particularly. So if you've got a pet cat, be very careful with them or her, and make sure that you keep them safe as you possibly can. Although knowing cats, and the one that I had is a real roamer, it's very difficult to tie them down. And also, I think that there is still a lot of suggestion. At least there was somebody on the BBC last night saying, a scientist saying, look, do be careful, follow every social rule at the moment, because if not, you're going to get hit again to come towards the end of the summer, and we'll all have to be locked down again and go through the misery that we've just gone through. And nobody, least of all Boris, wants that. So do be careful. The postmasters are awaiting a ruling over their convictions. That story, you'll recall, is where the post office charged a lot of postmasters and mistresses with embezzlement and fraud and all sorts of things, only to find out it was the computer. The computer is when we're going to learn that the computer isn't all God and can do all things. Heaven only knows. The trouble is that the higher up the rank of business people you get, the more determined they are to rely upon the computer, and it's getting them into trouble. And it's going to get them into trouble if they don't actually pay attention to it. Believe me, believe me. If necessary, I've never carried a flag or a poster in my life, but I'm getting so fed up with the fact that the computers are making life miserable for us. And I think that it's time that somebody became militant, and I can become militant. I'm old enough now to not care. They can do what they like with me. It's actually, the funny thing is probably a 6-month sentence for me would be a life sentence. Then my relatives could sue for wrongful arrest. Oh dear, 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 dear. That's the way it's going. Anyway, the Prince Louis has had a birthday snap released. That won't turn some people on, and others it'll be absolutely wonderful. Um, um, uh, uh, sorry, the Greensill thing. It looks as if poor old David Cameron is getting himself deeper and deeper into the mire, shall we say, with the Greensill thing, because there is evidence that he tried to use his influence as the former prime minister to look after a company which now seems to have feet of clay and is going bust. Uh, Now, has he done anything actually criminally wrong or just ethically wrong? Morally wrong. I mean, the jury is out on that. Doesn't matter who you speak to, even experts, they'll tell you one way or another. So it's worth watching for that, because if in fact it seems that the other members of the cabinet, other members of parliament who have had their fingers in some sort of till, that is alarm bells for us. You say, oh, well, if they actually get a few bob here and a few bob there. Well, let me tell you, I went to train journalists on anti-corruption techniques in reporting in Romania. And if you want to see the result of Romanian politics, then don't take this lightly. We do not want corruption to become rampant in our own society. It nibbles at the very base of society until in the end, what you've got is the biggest snout in the trough gets the prize. And I hope that if you want that sort of society, by all means, ignore what's going on at the moment with Westminster. There we are. Let's just see what else is happening. Well, the new European Super League has died a death. Not only that, some stalwarts of English football have lost their jobs. So why shouldn't they? I mean, it was a bit of a silly nonsense. Now, at this stage, I was going to show you a couple of programs because we got some interesting stuff, but the computer's died. I can't access it. I don't know what's happened. It just went kaboom, and it's been looking at around to see if occasionally something flashes, and but I can't spend much time doing much about it because I'm talking to you. And I'm happy to say that it looks as if our internet is connected, despite the computer falling down. So we are still in the driver's seat as far as our broadcast is concerned. But you're going to have to put up with a hell of a lot more of me. But what we could do is we could just take a look through some of the things that we do. Because our little team now is really the things with removal drives and all things flashing up. I have no idea what that's all about. Let's cross our fingers it doesn't stop. We will be doing a lot more from outside, as I've just said, outside broadcast, particularly if the weather is good. But it's a good thing first thing in the morning, because we do get a chance to speak to people who are early birds, people in the coffee shop, people on their way to the hospitals, the bus drivers. So it makes it an interesting morning if we do stuff from outside. Just got to get the technique right. Now, in late afternoon, we've got I don't know quite whether this. Let's just see, because we run a little tea time program from time to time with some interesting stuff. Now, lovely lady Terry with her mix and match program. She was featured on it the other day. Very interesting program with a silversmith from Lewis, who was teaching some youngsters in New York how to make a ring and a brooch and so on, and using cuttlefish shells. Would you believe? That was extremely interesting, and that's the sort of thing that Terry is uncovering and bringing to us. So that is the tea time thing. Now, from time to time, we unfold and get some dramatic stuff. So this comes up, or it should. Well, if it doesn't want to. Now, one of the things that is patently happening is I'm not getting any sound back through my system. So I played that, and there should have been some music there, and I can't hear it. So please forgive me if sometimes I put up stuff and I think that there is sound, and other days or other um, bits and pieces where the sound is not available. Now, you see, on the computer screen is our helmet has appeared, but nothing more. So I have no idea what's going on there. We've got something back. Look at that. We may have. Well, let's see if no. Oh yes, it may say that the program's there, but there aren't. So it's one of those things that yes, we are missing one of the key. Little tabs, but so we'll have to do without that one and merrily motor on. And it's now 7:53, and I've been rabbiting on that long. So let's look at other things that we do from time to time because we do forget. And one of the things that we do is well, we like to remind you that the shops are now open in Lewis, or what are they called, an unnecessary shops for the COVID lockdown. They can now open up, I think. So go on, do your shopping in Lewis. It's beginning to open up, and it feels very good. I went down to the precinct yesterday lunchtime, and it started to get a bubble about the place. So do go down. I also think that one of the things that we need to look at is how far can we go with our social distancing and so on and so forth. It looks as if it's going to be we're going to be asked to use it for a long, long time. And I went down to Lewis Station. I haven't been out of the station for some time now because I haven't been travelling to London or anywhere else for that matter because of lockdown. And I was a bit amazed, not amused, because there are a number of, well, quite a lot of school kids there, and only about 1 in 10 were wearing a mask. Now, we've got to keep the discipline because otherwise it's all going to disappear. No more pubs again. No more going out socializing. No more picnics in the park. We really, and no more getting closer to going on holiday overseas, which is, while in theory we can, in practice it's not going to be very easy. So if I was you, I would choose an English holiday. But even then, if we're stupid about it and we allow all our these strict measures to go by the board, then we're not going to get very far. It's all going to come roaring back. So for God's sake, use a bit of common sense. And it's all very well. Conspiracy theorists about there's nothing wrong really, and it's all a plot for the government to contain us and so on and so forth. Well, does it hurt you to go along with the fact that it just may be workable, and that the conspiracy theory is null and void, and then you can turn around and say, there, we told you so. The fact is, I am as concerned as anybody the way the governments are using, including our own, this COVID and some legislation to start to impose on press freedom. There you go. Though you'll say, press. Try living in a country that doesn't have a free press, and you'll come scrabbling back, begging for the Sun, the Mail, the Times, even the Guardian. Because what it does is it allows us to express our views without having our heads cut off. And there are still a few countries where once press freedom goes, then citizens' freedoms go. That's when you're thrown into jail, and nobody can say anything about it because there is no press left that is free to report that you are unjustly treated. So just be a bit careful. Be a bit careful. Right now, Mirador is struggling back to health. It's slow, but our team is coming together. We are slowly beginning to make more programs. We're getting together as a unit, albeit via social media at the moment, because we still can't fill our office with or the studio with people. But that is changing bit by bit, and so our programs hopefully will start to become more mature to help you better to understand what we're all about and to enjoy some of our programs. Now that's going to take a bit of time, but let me remind you that just before lockdown, this is where we were. Yeah, perhaps the video isn't going to play because of this silly thing. It's just, well, it's not. It's naughty. Well, never mind. It just says live starting soon. So why would we worry with that? Right. First of all, let's say good morning to our faithful fan, Gary Taunton, and also Rupert Lloyd Thomas is on watching this morning, and he says that he can hear us loud and clear. I'm not quite sure where. I know the last that I found Rupert was in the West Country, but that he does plan to get very active again in Lewis, and I hope that what he's going to start with is the Firle Hill climb. Rupert helped resurrect it, 5 years ago now. It's been a brilliant success. It wasn't a run last year, and a pity, but so many things weren't run last year. But I hope that he's on the case, and that we can get some form of it this year, if we consider on the lock up, as I call it. In other words, getting out of lockdown. and try to put some of these things back together. But there's a lot of organization goes into that. And it's a brilliant, brilliant show. It really is. The cars that come out of retirement or packed away in garages to take part in it are terrific. And that's all Rupert Lloyd Thomas, along with the Bo Peep Drivers Association, that managed to do it. And they do a terrific job. So that's where next. Now I'm just actually trying to make sure that I can put a monitor on, so that if we do lose you or you lose us, we'll know about it. Okay, what else do we do now? Hopefully, an old favourite is going to rejoin us too. I mean, COVID has had such a devastating effect, but you'll remember this young man.
Good morning, peeps. We're back in Hailsham after 3 weeks. I've had a few issues going on with health and various other stuff, but back to full strength again now. Gardens are looking good. As you can see, the rain is here to help things grow. So our little perennial garden in Hailsham that we've been working on for the last few months is now really coming together. We've got enormous hollyhocks growing. The alliums are all out, cicerantiums. It's an absolute blast of life now, and we're still not in the main growing season. So another few weeks, it will really come to life. So as you can remember, we planted courgettes and peas and sugar snaps in the outside bed. So the courgettes are now flowering, and the sugar snaps and the peas are doing remarkably well.
Well, there we are, a delightful young man who is very, very good at his trade, and he can take a piece of bare land and turn it into. I'm trying to remember the name of the man who created some of the great gardens of England. I want to say blessed when it isn't. It'll come to me just as we go off the air. But not only will Alex take us through a new project, but he'll also give you little tips and hints, because we have all become much greater gardeners because of COVID. You know, for instance, little things on how to repot a plant, how to make sure that your ground stays fertile, that sort of thing, those sort of hints. So do join Alex with us, and then again we are going to have. She's working hard in the background now. This lady who.
Hi, I'm Jane at Mirador Television, and I love to recycle, upcycle, renovate, decorate, paint, and if I can find any old junk, I'm happy to turn it into something else. So in the next few months, I'm going to give you some ideas and show you what I'm up to at home, from turning tins into bins, making garden cushions, and my recent find was a Lloyd Loom ottoman, which has a wonky leg, but I'm going to try and renovate the leg and find some lovely fabrics. So lots going on. This week, I'm just going to show you a couple of old cot bumpers that I found hanging around the house from some time ago, and I thought, well, I don't want to waste the foam. I'll turn them into some seat cushions for the garden bench.
Now, I don't know whether you noticed, but there's a smile there on Jane's face, and she's like me. She always sees the glass half full. She laughs a lot. She jokes a lot. She is full of humour. And that's exactly what we need in dark times, and that's what we got from her. Now, I would like to turn to politics locally. Stephen Catlin will be in this afternoon to give us a roundup of what's been happening in the district over the week. One or two things that perhaps we're hanging on to give the council chance to get to the end of the week to see whether they write some of the things that we've come across. But Stephen will give us a little rundown on what's been happening. But there's a mayor's meeting last night for the town council. And I signed up for it. I signed up to get into it, and you know, technology just okay. I'm the worst at it. It defeats me far more than it defeats other people, and I'm perfectly. I understand it. I just can't work it half the time. So I was signed up. I went to log in, and I was on the train. And do you think that because I was trying to do it on the phone and so on, it sent me in circles? It kept on asking for passwords, which I didn't have. It asked me for the size of my belt, whereas I wearing socks, you name it. So I never did manage to get into the town meeting. But I'm sure that Stephen did and others did, and that they will let us know what happened at that town meeting. Now, it's the town council. We have three tiers in Lewis. We are the site of the county council because we are the county town. Then the application of services and the collection of taxes and so on is with the district council, which covers about 100,000 people. The town council looks after rather small things now, and is probably no more than a parish council, except that it's got the pomp and the ceremony that is so important, in my opinion, to us displaying ourselves to the rest of the world. They love our pomp and ceremony. And as my friend discussing the funeral of Prince Philip said, the precision and the colour and the pomp and the ceremony of the armed forces at Windsor last Saturday is something that the world just loves and bows down to and can't actually replicate, much as they try. So all those things are good things. But the town council I know there are modernizers. Let's not put on the cocked hat. Let's not put on the robes. Well, that's fine. But what I think you've got to do is when you decide to do that, you're removing from the British tourist effort all the pomp and ceremony that overseas people like. So if you're not going to do it, and they're not going to come, and they're not going to put the money in, please will you put up your ideas instead of just pumping around and saying, oh, this is outdated, this is it. It's not. It's our wonderful sense of tradition, and we sell that. We sell that abroad. And if you want to be a town councillor, start to get behind the town. That's why you're elected. Get behind the town. Because much as you are nice people, and I love the mayor, and I love Stephen Catholic, and there are one or two more, Janet Barr, one or two more who are very active. There are those that just seem to be critical about everything that we do and decide that it should be a platform for them to profess their own personal views. But get off the pot. It's not there for that. It's for you to represent us. And I like to think that my representatives can be noticed because this program goes round the world. It goes everywhere. Okay, it's small and it's only growing at the moment, but it goes around the world. And people love what we do. That's why, at long last, people have realized we should try to save the red telephone box. And instead of having all these pretty painting on buses, that we keep the red bus, red omnibus, that we keep the red post box, because that's how Britain is seen overseas, and so it should be. And it's neat and it's identifiable. You know, companies pay millions to have a brand. Britain has got its brand, and what do we have? Half the representatives that are supposed to represent us want to get rid of the brand. I don't understand it. Well, I do. You know, I wouldn't become a politician for all the tea in China because 90% of them are as thick as two short planks. Thank God for the 10% that aren't. Anyway, that's my view of politics. I bet that gets a few people going this morning. Yeah. Oh, I'm full of piss and vinegar today. And I'm feeling much better because I'm not quite homeless anymore. Those of you who follow us a bit know that I've been homeless for a few days. And I deliberately allowed myself to be homeless so that I knew what it felt like. And believe me, I've got a great deal of sympathy. It's not so much whether you sleep on the streets or you find somewhere. What you haven't got is you haven't got a future. If you're homeless, you have no future. You have nothing to look forward to. You have nowhere to go. And it's not a question of being exposed to the elements. It's the psychological thing is you're abandoned by society. And 90% of the time, what happens is society does abandon us. It doesn't, it pays lip service, but it doesn't want to know, doesn't try to help. But there are good people in this world. Oh, and incidentally, I think it's Jack Ryan of North Street Motors, I think he calls his organization. But I went to my dentist the other day, and I stopped by and I said, is this where Mr. Ryan works? And they all looked at me as if, and then eventually this very nice chap said, well, I'm Mr. Ryan. He said, but I'm very cautious, as indeed am I. When people say, are you the television man? I just wonder whether they're actually going to fill me in. Or start to chat about the programs. And as he said, there are a few people that probably want to give him a bit of a bad time for some of the things that he does. But he actually found a scooter, or at least a scooter was taken from a young boy, and it was found in bits, and some typical hoodlums had pulled the thing to pieces, so it was unusable. And he went on social media and said, "Don't you let the little chap worry. We'll either fix the scooter or we'll get a new one." So I just dropped by because there it was, and I thought I'm going to say, well done to him. I did on social media, but I said it face to face, and he was very cautious in talking to me for 4 or 5 minutes, and then suddenly it dawned on him who I was because I was wearing a mask, and he said, "Oh, it's you." And then we were able to have a nice little chat before I went off down the road, and I was able to say to him, "Listen, you restored my faith in human nature. What you did was absolutely terrific, and I'm so glad that I was able to meet him face to face. He's a very nice bloke, by the way. Take your business down there if you need your car fixing, because if the boss is a decent bloke, you can guarantee that the company is a decent company. So there you are. Now I've totally lost what I was saying. Oh, I know. It's about our town council, and for that matter, our district council and any other councils. Is you are the brand. You are the British brand. That's how you're seen overseas. And the reason that people spend millions on branding is to try and make their company trusted. And our brand makes a good, solid feeling that Britain is still in command of at least its own defences, its own governance. Because we look the part. I've heard people say, well, why does the Queen make one of the children the Count of this or the Earl of that or whatever, and then they're able to put on a cape and they put on their medals, and sometimes they put on strange uniforms. It's because that's the way it's been done for so many years, and we can hang on to that. And what we've been doing over 50, 100, 200 years is selling all that. That has been our brand. And if you want to do away with it, as I say, come up with something that is going to brand us in a different way that will bring in the dosh. Because if not, leave it alone. Leave it alone. I'm all for principle. I don't mind. You can debate. Anybody who can debate with me. I'm not a very good debater, actually. I'm much better at shouting the odds. But anybody can debate why they should get rid of it, but have a good reason. And also the basic economic reason. You had better have a damn good argument for that and where the money is coming from. Because this country and this town and this village and this area, like all areas throughout the United Kingdom, struggle from time to time. And what do? Is they raise the taxes. And that's no answer to anything. We should be doing quite the reverse. Well, we don't. So this whole thing needs looking at. A la Keith. Oh, actually, I think it's about homeless. Terry of Pick a Mix fame, our new program, emailed me the other day. I haven't heard back, and she said, "Would I be prepared to debate the question of homelessness with an expert?" And I'm perfect. I'll debate anything with anybody. I mean, the big thing about debate is people are very clever at it. And politicians are particularly good. And they can make you feel very, very small. But the thing is, don't let it worry you. Be made to feel small, because you can always bounce back with the fact that you've got at heart some convictions. I remember the leader of the opposition in British Columbia on one occasion, a gentleman called David Barrett. He woke up to find himself a premier. They won the election and they didn't expect to. And he said on his first day in the House in Victoria, that the British Columbia Assembly, he got up and he made this great speech that he'd been saving for the time that he would make his first speech as a new MP, although they're called MLAs. And he made this speech, and he said the very long-standing premier at the time, a man called W.A.C. Bennett, he said within 3 words made him feel so small he wanted to crawl out of the chamber. And it can be like that, but it doesn't mean to say you've lost the battle. All you've done is you've lost the argument, because their use of words is very good, which means that, to me, let's educate our youngsters in words. Let's make sure that the English language flourishes in our schools, because it is a weapon. And if we're going to use weapons to better our lives and make sure that we don't get the sort of stench of corruption and patronage and so on that is coming out of Westminster at the moment, you need words, because that is the weapon of the politician. And if we're going to fight politicians and say, come on, get your act together, we expect you to do better than this, we need use of words. So why not teach the English language? It's 17 minutes past 8. And I'm having a lovely rant this morning, and I'm sure you don't actually want me to actually rabbit on as much as I am. But I love playing this, because this is one of the very first things that we ever did, and this is basically how we saw Lewis. I think it was in 2017, and when it was a vital and bubbling town. And it will become a vital and bubbling town again. But this is how we saw it when we made this. Shout it loud. Lewis is great. A terrific tiny town. And if we start to put our shoulder to the wheel again, we can make it, well, it is a great town. The trouble is that somehow we've lost our zest for letting people know. There's so many people that just think that let's keep the tiny town, but that's the way to disaster. You can actually lose all the spirit and zest and the goodwill of your citizens if you shut up. Better to shout out. Shout it loud. Lewis is great. Whenever I show these things, I've got all sorts of things that I think, oh, I can let people know about this, and then I forget about it. It's 19 minutes past 8 o'clock, so we're rapidly running out of time. Where it goes, I have no idea. Just a moment ago, I was on the train coming up from New Haven. One of the things that I would warn you about is that there is basically a rule of procedure that says don't change what you're trying to do midstream unless you've got good communication and you're absolutely sure that everybody who understands has actually bought into the thing. Otherwise, it'll all be a disaster. Well, yesterday I was being picked up by just a lovely lady, Mary Shorthouse. And I'm staying with the Shorthouse family in New Haven. And I've mentioned the Shorthouse family from time to time. I mean, it's a laugh a bloody minute. It really is, because they are as eccentric as any English family that I know. They're caring, they're fun, they do great things. Mary got a PhD in sociology, I think it was, at 75, and is busy helping with COVID. Clive was the former LSE, London School of Economics bursar, and spoke his mind. They didn't like that very much, but when Clive gets cracking, his eccentricity is absolutely wonderful. And I hope that tomorrow morning, because he's a very keen sailor, tomorrow morning we're going to do a little program which is never scheduled because we never know what we're doing on the weekend if we do anything. And we're going to talk a little bit about his sailing prowess and what it means to this country, because I think we forget some of these things. And here we've got the experts sitting amongst us. But anyway, the main story is that Mary was going to pick me up at the office. And then I realized that I got some suitcases and stuff that also had to be picked up elsewhere in the town. So I emailed her and said, I'm sorry, I don't mean to mess you about, but can you pick me up at these other places? And I stood with the people that own this house. I stood, and for an hour, nothing happened. And it was obvious something had gone wrong. And of course, my message, all my fault, hadn't got through to Mary. She turned up to pick me up at the original place. And I mean, I must say that when I did eventually get to see her, she was very kind. I would have kicked me over the head if I'd have been her. But anyway, we did eventually get together. But be very careful when you're planning. Don't make basic assumptions, and that's what I did yesterday. Long in the tooth, a long in the tooth, communicator and so on. And I make that basic error, just a basic error, and I persuaded myself that it was okay, and it wasn't. And a lot of people suffered. Well, a lot of people suffered, but it wasn't very nice to several people as a result. So I'm not. I am apologetic, but I'm just warning you. Be careful when you've made a plan. Keep it. Now here we go again. You see that the computer has crashed again. I have no idea why, and it's not coming back this time. So I'm going to have to. Actually, we've got our good friend Dan, who looks after our IT for us. Dan is a smashing bloke, but he was working in a shift situation, which was keeping me up at work until 11 o'clock at night, and sometimes very early in the morning, and he never had any pattern. And I don't know what he's doing now, but he emailed me the other day and he said, I've got a 9 to 5 job, Keith, but I'm going to look after Mirador Television because I feel part of it. So he wanted to come on Sunday, but because of my moving house, I can't do much on Sunday. So he'll come as soon as he can in the next week and sort us out and make sure these sort of things don't happen, and that we can actually get through and make sure that we've got a proper service and proper equipment to do it. 23 minutes past 8. I was telling you about the headlines, wasn't I? India has put on the red list as far as travel is concerned, and it is suffering a resurgence of the COVID infection. So take note of where these things are coming back and hitting us hard, because don't ever say it can't happen here. Don't ever. Things can happen everywhere. Things that we would prefer not to. We are not immune just because we happen to be British or in the UK or whatever. One carrier vaccine cuts the infection risk at all ages, so that the vaccinations are working well. The postmasters and postmistresses are awaiting a ruling over their convictions. That's an absolute scandal. And I hope that somebody at the post office is brought to book. The big problem with both big business and the higher echelons of government is you have to be very, 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 very naughty to get your fingers burned. Whereas at the lower levels, such as ourselves, is all you've got to do is to pass wind in the wrong place, and you've got everybody down on you. So the post office charged some of its postmasters and postmistresses with filching the funds, stealing money, embezzling, all sorts of things. And some of them actually did go to prison. And some of them lost their lives. I mean, they committed suicide because of what they'd been charged with. And many post offices closed down in villages and towns around the country. And now the post office has discovered it was a computer error. A computer error. You know how I keep on saying to you, watch the computers. Get computers to work for us, not the other way around. And at the moment, it's the other way around. Computers are taking the lead. they're doing things which, when you start to talk to people on the coalface, that they're fine, they're nice. And then the computer takes over and spews out some letter that you'd like to go and wrap around the chief executive's neck. And does he care? No. Anyway, the postmasters are awaiting the ruling over their convictions, and if they are not exonerated, then I think there's going to be one hell of a row throughout the country. There's some evidence of human to cat COVID infection. So watch your moggy. Don't kill your moggy, or don't let the moggy kill you. And the Treasury is now into the row over David Cameron and Greensill. Greensill being a finance company that David Cameron became involved with and sought favours from the government, sought favourable treatment, and then it went bust. And of course, then everything spills out, and it will be decided whether there was any criminal activity on the part of David Cameron, or whether he was just morally wrong, or was he just a fool and was duped. And the other thing I like is I was arguing with Clive last night that we were talking about the threats with the build-up of Russian armed forces on the Ukrainian border and the Chinese, and I said it's Chinese technology, cyber threats that were biggest from the Chinese, and he disagreed. So we had a good old wingding on it. But now I see that the head of GCHQ, the chief spy, is warning of a tech day of reckoning. He says that if we don't actually spend money on high tech, as we will be vulnerable, particularly to the Chinese. So there, Clive. But to the rest of you, make sure that you're careful. I know I hate passwords and so on and so forth, but do be careful with your data. It might end up in a mixing machine in Beijing. It's 8:28. So those were the headlines. It's going to be a lovely day today. The temperature is rising all the time. It's sunny outside. There will be a bit of a breeze. Let me check my tree. No, it's not waving yet, so the breeze hasn't hit, but the sun most certainly has. It's lovely, cloudless, and it's going to stay that way all day. So that's it for today. It's 28 minutes past 8. You've been watching, if you've been watching, or when you watch later, you've seen what's happening in Lewes, in East Sussex in the UK, a lovely little town. And here's what it's all about and what we're all about. And I hope that, we do ad hoc programs from time to time, but this is our main one at the moment. So do try and catch us again on Monday, because each time, as each day goes by now, so we've got more members of the team returning, and we can do more things, and we can do them properly. So until Monday, from me, Toodle Pip. Well, you see what happens when it all goes.